Hi there, good morning, people. This is Azib from Diazoniclabs. Am I audible? If yes, please send the response in our chat box so that I can proceed. Right, today's session will be a basic introduction to website development. Okay, in here we'll be learning how to code our way into developing a website. We'll not be going into in-depth details about everything, but a slight introduction on how the website looks like, or what elements will be used. Okay, so we'll be using the concepts of HTML and JavaScript here, and we'll be learning from scratch how HTML is used, and we'll use a bit of CSS and JavaScript. As and when we start, we'll understand what's happening. Right. So once again, welcome to our webinar here, and I hope everyone is doing good. I hope everyone is staying healthy with the pandemic situation. Ensure that you drink lots of water, take care of yourself, and let's begin our journey. My name is Azib. I'm with Diazonic Labs for past 3 to 4 years since the foundation. I work as one of the lead trainers here. Apart from this, I work at Dell as a full time, and in my free time, I work with Diazonic Labs. I'm very excited to teach you this, and hope that I'll impart some knowledge which you can take home and build on it and work. Right. So let's begin. So the prerequisite for the website is you don't need to know any programming language as such for this, because we'll be doing some very basic level coding. Okay, so it's not necessary that you need to be a computer science student to understand this. If you have a basic understanding of how to use the computer, that should be enough. And I would recommend you having a laptop to work on this, because when we're coding or when we're typing, it's better to always type and emulate whatever I'm doing, so that you'll be able to follow along and learn. If not, you might not understand everything clearly. So I would recommend that you have a laptop or a desktop with you, so that you can type as and when I type. So this is going to be live coding. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a web app, like a demo kind of a web app, wherein we'll try to perform few tasks and make our website a little responsive. So we'll install one specific bit of application for this to work on, okay, which I'll tell in a few minutes. Okay. So before I start, I would request you to subscribe to our channel, Diazonic Labs on YouTube. Follow us. We'll keep updating good content, and help us reach more people, because only when more people understand, it will be satisfactory for us, because our content will be good. Right, we are present on almost all the social media websites. So first of all, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Telegram. So the links will be shared throughout the session on the chat box. You can simply go ahead, subscribe, and register on our channels. Right, so the basic topic for today, web development. So web development is a vast area which we'll not be able to cover in one session. So if you have to go into an in-depth session of web development, you'll have to have 100+ hours of training on it. But what we'll be doing is the very basic of it, so that we can start building the website from scratch. So if you see web development, if you see here, we have HTML, we have JavaScript, we have jQuery, we have WordPress, we have Ruby on Rails, we have Java, we have PHP. These are various aspects which can be used in web development. So we'll be focusing primarily on JavaScript and HTML, and a little bit of CSS on it, and we'll continue. So you must have heard this term called as full stack web development. So what full stack web developer does is all the web technologies which we use, like when we build a website right from the scratch, from the way it looks to the interior workings and everything, the whole of it is called as full stack development. Okay, it includes a lot of details the way I have categorized here. The most important two things, front end and back end. The thing apart from it, to support this, we'll have a database, we'll have some project management tools, and then we'll also have something called as version controls, which we'll use to modify and neutralize the details. So I want to know from you, what do you think, is a web development platform, or what do you think is web developer? What's the job of a web developer? So I would request you to just type in your answers in the comment boxes, so that I know what your understanding is about. If you can quickly comment it out. Meanwhile, I'm just going to continue with this. So as I mentioned, web development is divided into various categories. We will be focusing only on front end for now, and front end will also have a lot of categories. As you see here, we have HTML, we have HTML5, JavaScript, jQuery, CSS. So HTML is something which we'll be focusing on, more specifically HTML5. Okay, I see the comment answers here. Sakshi Vora saying building a website, correct. Anuradha Sharma, web developer, building websites to build web applications, web designer maybe. Yes, all of your answers are correct. Okay, there is no exact answer on this. So yes, a web developer is someone who designs the website right from scratch, controls it, manages it, gets the application and everything. I have another comment which says creating a public platform. Absolutely correct. It might be to enhance more flexible sites. Correct. Okay. It's about developing website and its regulation. Good. Yes. So web development includes all of these things. What we are going to cover is just the gist of it. So we'll be creating the client side website, as in whatever we see on our end. So once we create that, there'll be other aspects added to it, which comes in backend, wherein we will be able to add functionalities, regulations, and everything. So that is slightly off the topic of today's session, but we'll give a pointers on everything here. Okay, so as I was saying here, in front end we have HTML. HTML5 is the latest version of HTML, which we'll be using. Previously there were HTML4, 4.1, 3, 3.1, other things. That's all obsolete now, and we'll be sticking on to HTML5. JavaScript is the programming language which we'll use to build the responsive applications. jQuery is a library derived from JavaScript, which is used in competitive programming for multiple sub-levels and everything. So we'll not touch upon jQuery much. We'll use JavaScript and we'll proceed. CSS is used for styling the website. Okay, so first of all, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it's not a programming language, it's a markup language. So that means we'll use it, it's in readable format. Once you read it, you'll be able to understand. It's not very complicated like the terms in Java. So it's very straightforward in English, and you'll just have something called as tags, which we'll use in HTML. Okay, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So this is, as the name says, it's a style sheet which will tell how the website looks like from the design features perspective. Okay, it will not impact any functionality of the website, rather it will just give a feel to a website to make it look more beautiful. Right, so that's about the front end. In back end we'll have Ruby, PHP. We also have a derivative of JavaScript here called as Node.js, and we also have Angular, that's also from JavaScript, derived from JavaScript. So JavaScript can be used on backend as well, and we have .NET as well. Right, so I see another comment here from Pratyush Srivastava. Sir, I'm new in web development, but I don't know from where I should start. I'm not good in HTML, CSS. Well, Pratyush, not to worry. This is for beginners, so the way to start is with HTML. Once you have a basic concept of HTML grasp, we can then move on to a little bit of styling in CSS. Then from there you can proceed to JavaScript. Once you are, like, say, thorough in this, not completely perfect, that would take ages. So once you know a little bit of coding in JavaScript, and once you understand, so from there, we can proceed. So not to worry, in this webinar here we'll go step by step from scratch, so you don't have to worry. This is for beginners. We will start from scratch, right? Okay, so apart from front end and back end, we have database, which is used, which will contain the SQL or SQL languages. Okay, so the database will hold the data and make sure that whatever is developed. So this will, again, the database will come in the backend section, wherein it will link with the backend websites, and it will provide the results, so that the website is live. So what the front end thing does is, it will just show you on the client side. It will not be accessible throughout the internet. For that, you need the backend programming to be done. Okay, so this is a brief of how the website looks like. So on the front side, it will use HTML, CSS, JavaScript. This is the user interface, also called as client side. On the backend or on the server side, we'll have a server. The server programming languages will be PHP. We'll use Java. We'll use Python, ASP, Node.js, and we'll have a database which will be managing it, as I mentioned, SQL. Okay, just a different perspective to it, right? So the three main aspects which we'll be learning: HTML, so we're using version 5, so HTML5. CSS, we're using CSS version 3, and JavaScript. There's no specific version to JavaScript which we'll be using. It's just called JavaScript. Okay, so HTML, as I mentioned, is hypertext markup language. Okay, I'm not sure if this is visible, but these are the major tags of HTML which we'll be using. So HTML consists of things called as tags. So I will just open a Paint to show you how it looks like, or rather Notepad. I'm just going to increase the font size on this. Okay, meanwhile, I just want you to respond in the chat box to see if you are able to see the tags here. The text might be a little smaller, but just check and let me know if you are able to see. Okay, so this is what I was coming up to. Okay, so this is how our HTML code will look like. Everything will start with a tag. So these angular brackets, angular brackets. So whatever is held in an angular bracket is called as tag. So this is called a HTML tag. And if I write something else here, so this is one of the other tags. So this is my head tag. Okay, so HTML element or HTML language is based on this way, wherein we'll have a tag, okay, and we'll write everything in between the tags. So every tag which opens, or most of the tag which opens, will have a closing tag. So the closing tag will look like this. We'll have a /. So first angular bracket open, /, and the name of the tag, and the close angular brackets. So whatever we write will be within these kind of tags, right? So if I write a head tag, I will have to close the head tag. I'm gonna save this file. So we'll just do a demo on this. We'll just save this. So let's all open a notepad. Let's type this. Open the HTML, close HTML. In between the HTML, just type in head and close the head. And let's click on file, click on save as. in save as, I'm just gonna save it onto, I'm just gonna create a new folder. So it's always good to create a new folder, because whatever we do might be cumbersome and get changed everywhere. So I'm just gonna create a folder. I'm gonna name it webinar, and in here we'll have save as type. I'm just gonna select this to all files, and let me type index.html. You can give any name, so but the extension should be .html. Okay, just save it. So my file is saved. Okay, so now if I go to that particular location, open this thing and website, I went to webinar, and here we have this. So I'm just gonna launch this index.html. Let's wait for it to load. I've set Microsoft Edge as the default browser, so it takes a few seconds to launch. Okay, there we go, it's launching. We'll simply see a blank page with the name of the file here, index.html, because we have not written anything on here. Okay, we'll see a blank page. That's alright, completely fine. Let's switch back to our thing, and the first thing we'll do is inside the head tag we'll have something called as a title tag, title, and once I open the title tag, I'm gonna obviously have to close it. So I'm gonna close it, and in between the tags we will write our text. So I'm gonna get it in a single line. The line should not matter, it's just that, for the readability purpose I'm just doing this. In the title I'm gonna type my first web page, right? And I'm gonna save it. Control S is the shortcut to save it. Let's go over here and let's simply refresh. So if you see on the title has changed to my first web page, right? So if you guys want to follow along, what I would suggest is keep the session which you are watching on, I think the YouTube which you are loading, on one side of the screen. So let's split it. Let's use the screen splitter similarly to the way I'm splitting this. So I'm going to use my notepad. I'm going to use Windows icon and the right arrow key, and it will align, and I'm going to use this on the left side. So you can simply use it, Windows icon and right and left arrow key will move the application to one of the sides. Okay, I'm going to keep it this way so that we can interactively change. Okay, so this is just for me to do. What you could do is keep the YouTube screen on one side and keep your programming on the other side, so that you can check the code online on here, and side by side just do the programming. All right, so we have done our first bit, wherein we have written the name of the website here, name of the title, and the title is displayed here. So if you see here, the title is displayed. If you zoom in, you should be able to see. Right, so far so good. Has everyone gotten it? If yes, please just write in the comment box so that we can proceed. And any doubts so far related to what we have studied till now or learned so far? Please ask in the chat box and we'll see. Okay, I get the response saying yes, we've gotten the response. Perfect. Right, so let's proceed. So we learned 3 tags for now. One was the first HTML tag, we started and ended. The second tag was the head tag, we started and ended. The third tag was the title tag. So I got a question here, how to download HTML application. So this was RC Hireman. So we don't have to download HTML application. I'm just simply using the notepad. So if you see on the screen, I can just click on start and type Notepad. Notepad is the only application which we can use. We don't need to download any specific application for HTML. Download the Notepad, save the file, and just run the file from the file explorer. When we run it, because we saved it at .html, it will take the inbuilt browser of your computer. So this will work with any of the browsers installed, any of the modern browsers, Microsoft Edge, Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Opera. Yeah, I think this would be the major browsers which we'll be using anyway. Yes, so it will work with everything. Okay, how to open Notepad on web? So you don't have to open the Notepad on web. So we'll just simply click on Windows icon and type Notepad here. So this is the Notepad installed on your computer. That's it. Okay, another question, can we, instead of my web page, can we give other name to it? Yes, you can absolutely write everything. I am going to type diazoniclabs here. You can type anything you want and it will still work. So I'm going to change it to diazoniclabs and I'm going to go back. I'm not going to close this or launch it again because I have the web page open already. I'm simply going to refresh the web page. And if you see, the name of the title will change. I'm not sure if you're able to see the title because the title is a little too small. I won't be able to zoom that in as well. Let's see if I can open a magnifier to show it to you. I guess you're able to see it. Okay. All right. So yeah, whatever name you want, you can simply change it here in the title and we'll be able to. Can we use Bluefish application, sir? Yes, Bluefish is one of the editors. You can use any editors. Yeah, I'm using Notepad for now, and in future, when we're proceeding with the little bit of advanced coding, we'll be using another bit of the application coding platform. But for now, Notepad is absolutely fine. Notepad will provide the editor code example here, and we'll proceed with this. How to change title font size? Title font size is not something which we can change because this is on the title. Okay, there are a few advanced code for it to change. We'll not go into it for now because this is something which is displayed on the title of the website. Okay, so this is something to do with website's title functionality. So let's ignore this for now. Is this website can be accessible to other internet users? No, it will not be useful accessed by any other users because this is just on our site. So whatever we do today, it will not be accessed by any other users. So for that we would need the backend scripting and we need to host the website. Okay, hosting the website will cost money and we'll have to get a domain registered and then register our website name there and host it. So no, it will not be accessible. So that's something which will be happening later, okay, which will be the advanced section of this. So our focus today will only be to go through the front end development. Right. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about this. So apart from the head tag, we have something called as the body tag. So as I mentioned, when we start, we will end with the body. Okay, make sure you use the angular brackets correctly. Okay, in the body tag, we will be able to type in our text. So I'm just gonna use a heading. So we have a tag called as h1. H1 is used to give a heading. So I'm just gonna type, this is my first website. You can simply type anything. Once you do, I'm just going to save it. So you can either save here or just press Ctrl S. I'm going to switch back to my browser and change. So I get the website name here. This is my first website. Right, so it's in bold and it's in a larger size because it's in H1 tag. So H1 has certain attributes to it. It will increase the size to a certain number of pixels and it will bold the text. Okay, so if I simply type it outside the h1, this is my website, you will see it come in the, I'm just gonna save it and I'm gonna refresh it. If you see this, this is my regular text which comes up, and this is my normal text, or rather the h1 text. Okay, you see the difference? So HTML has 6 different kind of headings which can be used. So we have h1, we have h2. This is my h2 heading. You can simply type in anything. I'm just gonna simply type whatever I feel like. You can type. So if you see the difference, okay, I think I made a spelling mistake, but that's fine, shouldn't matter. So the one at top is the h1, the one at bottom is the h2. So if you see the size difference, you can understand what's the difference there. So we have similarly h3, h4, h5, h6. I'm not going to type everything. I'm just going to type h3. This is h3 heading, and I'm going to close the tag, and so if you see the size difference, you'll come to know. Okay, so wherever you want to use whichever heading, we can use that appropriately. Okay, apart from this, this is very plain and very basic. What if I want to make it a little interactive? Okay, so I'm going to use something called as anchor tag. Anchor tag stands is written as A, and when I write A, I will close A. Okay, in the anchor tag, I'm just gonna type in my website. Rather, let's do my YouTube channel. Simply to create a link. So I'm just gonna do this, and I'm gonna refresh this. So I see this my YouTube channel being listed. Okay, but there is no functionality whatsoever added. So anchor tag is used to link this to a different website or a different link. Okay, so we need to use certain attributes. Okay, so whenever we use a tag, few tags will have something called as attributes. Okay, I see a question here. Is there a specific place for body tag? Yes. So body tag generally, all the tags which we write will come in inside the HTML tags. Okay, so by procedure, it is generally head tag which comes first, and then after the head tag is ended, we write the body tag. So all the other elements will be inside the body tag. Right, so this is the way it's referenced, but we can switch between head and body. We can write body first and head first. It will still work, but it doesn't go according to the norms or according to the design. So ideally it shouldn't matter, but yeah, according to the norms, we first write head, then body. But it's absolutely necessary that we write the body tags within the HTML. Within the HTML open and within the HTML close, we have to ensure that body is opened and closed within that. Right, and body should not be written inside the head tag. Head tag should be closed, only then body tag should be open. And that's one of the things. One more question, is this for children? This is for children, students, young adults, old men, professionals, retired people, everybody, because this is something which is not going to go off so soon. Website development has been booming since the advent of the internet, and it's going to continue booming till the end of the internet. So it's going to be like it's always a good skill to have, to learn how to develop a website. So the reason for this is, I personally feel, lots of people spend lots of money hiring people and asking them to design the website for themselves, and then they can do it themselves. Okay, so if you just pay for the hosting, and you can create your own content, or at least you would know what to create, rather than spending exorbitant amount of money with the web developers asking. It's a good business which you provide to others, but it's always good to know what's happening, how you can change, or if there is some slight modification there. One more thing, I'm not a computer background student, but I would love to learn. So it's fascinating. Yeah, so it's good. I mean, you don't have to be a computer background student to learn this. This is very simple. It's just that, once you understand English and a little bit of, how to use the computer, you should be able to develop the website. I mean, as and when you start learning, you'll be able to grasp more knowledge in it, and we should be able to get through to it. Okay, without further ado, let's continue. We use something called as the A tag or anchor tag. So anchor tag, just using it without any attributes is of no use. So I'm gonna use something called as href. Href is the reference tag which we use, and I'm gonna give it the name of my YouTube channel. This is my YouTube channel name. So I've just written a space. I'm just gonna reduce the size of the text because it seems to be a little too. Okay, I think this is still visible from what I see. Okay, so within the anchor tag, within the closure of the first anchor tag, so I'm gonna write a space href equals to, I'm gonna give the name of the tag. Okay, and let's check if I've written this correctly. I'm just going to save and refresh. So if you see here, our tag is our YouTube channel text. Whatever is the text written in between the opening and closure of the anchor tag will be written here, and that has a link, hyperlink. So if I just hover over the link, we should be able to see some link coming up there. So I'm just going to try and click on the link and see if it redirects. It doesn't. Alright, okay, let's check. I'm gonna go to the youtube.com. Diazoniclabs. This just so that I can get the just going to copy the link here. So while we are here, you can simply click on subscribe. Yes, so it redirects. Right, so I've just copied the link, so you can copy any link. So what I did was I just went to a YouTube channel, I copied the link from here, and I pasted it in the href within the quotes. Okay, once I do this and save this and go back to our website, so this is the website, and refresh it and simply click on this, we should be able to redirect. Sounds cool? So this is how website linking is done. I think I answered. Someone had a question, what is the / used for? I think that was answered. So / is used for closing the tag. Okay, so whenever we open a tag, so corresponding closing tag will have a / and then the closure of the tags. So this will work with absolutely most of the tags, almost say I would say 90% of the tag. Okay, a few tags, there are exceptions which when we are coding we'll learn. Okay, not to worry about that, I'll explain them. But most of the tags will be for the opening tags will be followed by something called as a closure tag. The closure tag will have a / and the brackets. Okay, so this is how it's going to look, right? So a tag, there's a question here which says what's the use of a tag. A tag is called as anchor tag, that is used to anchor or help us link one web page to another web page. So in here what we did, we linked this web page, and from here we can simply click on this link and go to another web page. So I have selected my website here, but you can select anything. So on your website, if you have links, so that link can be generated using something called as a tag. So we use this attribute called as href. So we'll simply have to type a space href is equal to, and in the quotes give the link of the website, okay, and then close the tag. That's it, simple as that. I hope everybody got this. If yes, please say yes in the comments. Another question here which was asked, can Python C be used for web development? Yes, we can use Python and C, but front end will always have HTML or something called as XML, but we need to have this HTML coding written apart from HTML, because HTML is the way the website will look like. Python can be used on top of HTML, or C also can be used, but we will have to use HTML for it to work. Okay, HTML is the bare bone of any website which you use. Any of the modern website will have HTML, a little bit of CSS, a little bit of JavaScript. Apart from it, there will be a lot of other things, because there are a lot of things which happen on the website. So for example, on this website there is just HTML, there's nothing else. Okay, but if you add a lot of other things, like if you want to add some interactive things, if you hover over it, we need something else to happen and all those things, we'll use different kind of things. Okay, alright, so we'll proceed further. Okay, so I told about anchor tag, we told about body. What else? If you want to insert an image, we have something called as img tag. I'm not going to use because we would have to download an image. An img tag, this is how the img tag will look. We'll have something called as source, and we'll have to give the link of the image, and the image should be displayed. Okay, that's something which we can do. I'm just going to leave it at this, because if we start explaining about all the tags in HTML, that would take a few hours in itself to learn. Okay, so my the demo which we're going to use today, or the website which we're going to develop, it's a web app. It's called as typing master. It'll help us determine what's the type. I have the demo ready. Let me just check. I'm just going to launch this. So this is how a website will look like. Please let me know if you're able to see the screen. Okay, so I'm just gonna refresh. So it says speed typer, wherein it will prompt the text, and we need to see how fast we can type. So if I ran out of time, I'm just gonna click on reload. Okay, the difficulty is set to easy for now. I'm gonna write this word, and every time I write the word, you see the time will increase. So I'm on easy level. So every time I answer one word correctly, 4 seconds will be added. If you see, the second has increased. So while doing this, I can simply switch to medium level. In medium, what I'll do is every time I answer a text correctly, so it will add 2 seconds, and I can also switch to hard, and every time I answer text correctly in this, 1 second will be added to the time left. You see the time will change. So similarly, so this is used just so that we can, I'm just going to click on reload. So this is designed in such a way that we'll be able to see how fast we can type, or how many words we can type before the time runs out. Okay, so we can switch the difficulty level. This is something which we are going to develop from scratch. If time permits, I'll explain you the whole of the code. We'll do this from scratch, and as and when we learn new things, because we'll be learning a lot of new tags from what apart from what we see. So we'll try and understand them. Okay, I'll also share the code with you at the end. You can use this and develop and make sure you implement much more things. Okay, so this is very basic level, but the programming involved is slightly tricky, but we'll understand it. Alright, so if you see, this looks like a sleek web app, wherein you have lots of elements. We have the HTML, we have CSS, we have JavaScript, everything inculcated in it. Okay, and we'll learn how to do this. Alright, so for us to start, we can simply use Notepad. If you all have Notepad, simply use Notepad like we did before. But I'm gonna try and install application called as Visual Studio Code, which looks a little sleeker. Okay, so I'm gonna download that. But if you want to continue with Notepad, you can absolutely do it. There is no problem at all. Or if you have any other text editors as well, Notepad++ or Eclipse, or I don't remember the names of the other editors. Eclipse, Notepad++. If you have Visual Studio Code, that's something which I'm downloading, or which you have PyCharm or anything. You can use anything, but for now we'll simply stick with this. So once again, I'm just going to show you. Let's dive Visual Code. We'll get Visual Studio Code listed here. Once you click on Visual Code download, so let's click on this, and let's download the one for Windows. I'm a Windows user, so I'm going to download Windows. The link for download will be sent in the chat. Someone mentioned about Sublime Text. Yes, you can use Sublime Text. Okay, someone already has Visual Studio Code. Perfect, you can use Visual Studio Code. For people who do not want to download anything, you can simply continue using Notepad and write. That should be no problem at all. Right, so I have downloaded the file. I'm just running it. So because this is HTML, as long as it's just an editor, a text editor, you can even use Microsoft Word for this. Okay, there is no problems with that. So all you have to do is, when you are saving it, you need to save it in that particular format, .html. Okay, so this is the setup. So this downloading should not take too long. It should only take roughly 2 minutes. It's about 50 megs. So I'm going to accept the license agreement. I'm just going to leave it at default. The name of the folder, that's fine. So you have add to path listed, so let's stick with that. I'm just going to create a desktop icon, and this is another thing which I really like about this. You will have open with code as one of the options. I'm just going to select all this and click on next. Ready to install, and it's installing. Do we have to download any other files for running HTML in Sublime? I don't think we... See, generally I recommend using Visual Studio Code for this, because I am using it, so there's no confusion. But I think it should work absolutely fine from what they say. I have not used Sublime Text for this, but yeah. But if you feel there are confusions, you can simply switch over to Notepad and use Notepad. It should work fine with Notepad as well, as I mentioned. Okay. While this is downloading, once again I would request you all to please subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so. Okay, your subscription helps us a lot. It helps us grow, and it helps us reach better audience. The link for our channel will be shared in the chat box, and please join our Telegram group as well, because we'll be posting a lot of things about upcoming webinars. Okay, we do this live webinars every weekend, every Sunday, usually around 11:30. Okay, so once if you are registered onto our Telegram group, you will have updates on it. Okay, so that you don't have to miss out on anything. Okay, so in the description of diazoniclabs, if you go to any video, we'll have a lot of links written about this thing. All the social media links will be there. Okay, so we are available on all the social media platforms, right? So please follow us. Right, I think it's almost done. It's loading. Okay, this is how our Sublime Text, the Visual Studio Code should look like. I'm hoping it's visible to everyone. I'm just going to click on File and click on New File. Just going to click on Cancel or on the things. Please let me know if you are able to see the text. If not, I will change the color or I'll change the font size. This is the dark theme which comes in by default. I think I'll probably increase the size, because I think it is, if you want to increase, I mean, you don't have to increase, but I will increase so that it's readable for you. So I'm just going to go to File, Preferences, Settings, and I think I should have the settings. I'm going to change the font size to say 28, right? And let's check if I can find the color here to see if I can change it to this thing. Okay, one of the comments here says do another session for backend development. Definitely, yes. Backend development is something which we're looking at, but so what we thought was initially, let's start with the front end because backend is slightly more advanced. So if you do not understand the front end, there's no point going into backend, right? So yes, we have that in our plan. So we are also planning to perform a full session on front end first. Okay, like a full say 7 days or 8 days complete training session, because what we learn today will not be enough to completely understand all the concepts. So we're trying to perform a session on complete this thing, but yeah, we will see how it goes. Definitely a backend session will also be inculcated in future, but yeah, we'll see. So join a Telegram group, will keep updating regarding the sessions. Right. Okay. So let's proceed. So let's start typing in text, and let's go with the flow and see what can be done regarding this. Okay. So I hope everyone has downloaded or is ready with the editor. So as we mentioned earlier, I'm gonna type. I think we'll increase the font a little more. Font size to 36. I think this should be much better. Perfect. Okay. So I'm gonna type HTML opening and HTML closing text. And inside the HTML, I'm gonna type a head tag, and I'm gonna close the head tag, and in here I will type my body tag and close the body tag. So this is like a basic skeleton of any HTML website. Okay, so this is how it's supposed to look like. So I'm just gonna save this. So to save, let's go to File and let's click on Save As. I'm gonna go to website. I'm gonna click on my webinar, and in here the Save As type, I'll simply change it to HTML. For people using Notepad, you can simply type in all files, and I'm going to name my file as index. I'm just going to replace the previously written file, because index is generally the way it works is index is generally named as the first web page in a website. So that's the reason, that's the convention, and we'll get this proceeded. See, so I hope everyone is done till now. So once it's done, let's give a title. What shall we write our title as? So if you see in VS Code, automatically the closing tag also comes up. So I'm just going to let it be the way it is. So I didn't even have to type it, it automatically populates. So I'm going to name our title as Speed Typer. I think that should be fine. Yeah. I'm just going to save this, and let's go to our website. It was in webinar. Yeah. Let's run this. Okay, it's already open here. Speed typer. Okay, so it's a blank space. I'm just gonna close the other tabs so that it's easily visible. Okay, so we just have the title of the website here saying speed typer. Okay, and let's switch back. Alright, so since we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're using something called as HTML5. Okay, so for the website to recognize that it's HTML5 and it's not the older version, we have to make one declaration. Okay, it will again be a single tag. This will not be a closed tag. We have something called as doc type. Okay, so exclamation doc type. Okay, and exclamation doc type followed by HTML. So when we do that and close the bracket, so the website will understand that this is HTML5. Right, so what this does is, if there is some code which is designed to work for HTML5, which is recently introduced, okay, the website should be able to read it. So this is just for a few of the websites which are not compatible with the newer version, so they will try and ensure that they run it with the compatible versions. That's only a declaration, nothing will affect the code. Most of the code will run, okay, a few of the codes here and there will not. So that's the reason we'll simply type this doc type HTML. Okay, this is if you want to comment here, I mean if you want to understand the code or anything, we can simply comment. So to write a comment, okay, so because whatever we type should not be displayed. To write a comment, this is how we'll do. We'll type angular bracket, we'll use exclamation followed by 2 dashes, and automatically a close bracket will come. I'm just gonna mention doc type HTML is used to tell the website that it is HTML5 code. Okay, this is just for our reference to understand. Okay, so the comment generally starts with colon, I'm sorry, the angular bracket, exclamation, 2 dashes, and ends with 2 dashes and angular bracket close. So whatever you type in this will not be displayed onto the website. So if I just go to my website and just refresh it, you will not see anything written here. Okay, because we have literally just mentioned the title. So this is my declaration and this is the content for me to understand. So why are comments important? Comment is important because when we write say hundreds and hundreds of lines of code, and I mean when you are actually a web developer and you are trying to simply go through the paces of what's happening, okay, so that time you will not be able to understand, okay, why this code was written or what's happening with the code. So that's the reason comment is very important. Okay, comment is something which is used generally to ensure that we understand what was written in the code, right? So yep, so that's the reason it's always a good habit to write comments about whatever you don't understand, so that in future when we are doing anything, we can simply check the code and understand. So comment is something which is not read by the website. It's for your readability. When you read the source code, you'll understand. It will not be executed by the browser, or it will not be programmed. Okay, it's just for the readability purposes. So I could say, when you're writing any presentation in the site, you write notes with a pencil. So it's something like that, right? So all programming language will have some syntax to write comment. Similarly, HTML has this. So whatever you write inside this angular bracket, exclamation and 2 dashes, and closing with 2 dashes and the angular bracket will not be executed. It's only for readability purposes for you to. Okay, all right. So let's begin. Let's not waste time. So we'll go further and we'll use inside the body. If we type anything, this is my website. So obviously this will be executed. Let me check. Okay, this is not something which I wanted to. I just wanted to check the website works. So yes, it works. Whatever I print will come up. So yeah, let's change this. I'm not going to include this. Just wanted to check. So far, is everyone with me? Please respond with a yes in the chat box. Okay, let's proceed. So we'll be using something called as if we go to our original website, I think let me check. This was in JS. This was my website. So we have something called as a form here. So we'll start from right and we'll go on. So we have a form here. So wherein we have to select something. So we'll try to develop this first, and after developing this, we'll go to our main section here. Okay. So I'm just gonna leave this open for now so that there's no confusion. I'm gonna change the name of the website so that there is no confusion. This was my already finished product. We're trying to replicate this. This is my yet to be developed product. I'm just going to change the title here so that there is no confusion. I'm going to type high speed typer just to ensure that I differentiate. Okay, so this is my high speed typer. Okay, this is the one which I'm going to develop. This is my already developed application. This is something which I'm going to come to. Okay, so we need to get a difficulty and drop down here. So we'll create the drop down using HTML. Okay, so it's very simple. So we'll do all of this in our body tag. Okay, in the body tag, I'm gonna write something called as a form. I did not explain you about form. Form is a tag which is used to create a form kind of thing. All right. So in form, I'm gonna give another tag called as label. So label is used to give a label for the website or label for the form. So I'm gonna name it, I mean in between the labels I'm gonna type it as difficulty. So that's what we wanted, right? So let's go back to the website here. Yes, difficulty is something which is written. So I'm gonna type difficulty here, okay, and close the label. And then let's execute this. We'll go step by step, not to worry. Let's go back to here. We see difficulty written. Okay, it's not aligned, that's fine, but we have a basic gist of it. So we have difficulty. So this, so far so good. Now we need to make this drop down. So this drop down is something called as a select box. This is called a select box feature. So so far we'll create a form. In form we are given a label. Okay, in the form we have another sub tag called as select option. So that is used for select box. Okay, select, I have opened and closed select. In select I don't have to give any name. I'll just give what do we have in select? If I go here, we have 3 options. Okay, so this is called as the option tag. I'm gonna switch back and I'm gonna create how many options? 3 options. So option the tag, okay, option, the name of the option is easy. I'm gonna hit enter, type another option, and I'm gonna make this medium. And third option, I'm gonna make this hard. I'm just gonna save this. Control S will save, or you can simply click here and click on save. It should work. Let's go back to our, okay, this was the original. This is something which I was doing. Okay, so we have a select box. In here we have 3 options: easy, medium, hard. Right, so far everyone got this. So we are beginning to get the gist of whatever is going to happen, at least this part. Okay, this part is slightly more trickier, but we'll get that as well. Okay, so please confirm and let me know if you're able to get to this so far. The code is very simple till here. So inside body we'll create a form tag. Inside form there'll be 2 separate tags. One will be label to just give the label of what is level. So this is not actually important to the code. It's just to to perform the readability on the website, right? And in that we'll have the other tag will be a select, because we are using a select box. In select box we will have three options, so we are using the tags called as option. Option is the tag, so we'll write three things: easy, medium, hard. Okay, so that's it. We're done with this. Next, after this is done, after the form, I'm gonna hit enter. I'm gonna type h2 and I'm gonna type speed typer. So that's what we need, right? Speed typer. So let's go to the website. So we have speed typer. So I'm gonna type speed typer here, and I'm gonna save this. And let's go back and let's check. So we have speed typer written. Okay, my text here, my website, the browser's text is different, so that's the reason. We can change the text. I'm gonna do that later. If you see here, we have something called as an emoji. If you see, we have smiley and emojis. So let's see if I can download an emoji and add it. Smiley. So all we have to do is we'll just have to copy. Okay, I'm gonna copy this. So just highlight it here, copy, and this is not important. Okay, you'll see it being inserted into the text. Let's save and let's see if it comes up. Yeah, there we go. We have emojis coming up. Okay, you can add any emojis. I mean, this is the smiley which I got. Like typing smiley face. Do we have that? No. I can use this or this, whatever I come, I can just simply copy it and go into our code and type it in. Okay, yeah, no, this doesn't look good, so I'm just going to remove this, leave it at this. Okay, this is good enough. So if you want to use any other emojis, you can simply go and copy it. It will come up. All right, let's proceed. What else do we have after this? Okay, I'm going to close this and go to my actual website. And here we have below type the following. This is something which we'll have to write. Okay, so let's go back to our code and let me just simply type it. Because it's in body, I don't have to put any tag. I'll just mention type the following. Right, it's supposed to be type the following. Yeah, let's go here. Let's mention you have typed the following. Okay, I'm going to use something called as a small here, and I'm going to write this type the following in small, so the size is small. Okay, small simply means the size of the text is small. Okay, it will reduce the size a little. Okay, what else do we have? We have a word which is coming up here. Okay, but that word keeps changing every time. So I'm just going to create a blank space here with the word to come up. Okay, and we'll use that later. So if you see that it's in bold. Okay, so if this is H2 we use, this will be H1. So I'm going to create a H1 here. Okay, I'm going to close H1 and I'm not going to type anything here because this is the word which will come back, which will be changing every time when as in when you type and write, it will be changing. So we will simply leave it blank for now. We will code this later. We'll come back to it. Okay, just so that we know that there is a word written. Okay. So if I just type in a word or anything written here, the word will be displayed. So if you see here, so word is displayed. So almost the same size. Okay, but I'm not going to type it as word. I'm going to remove the word. Just leave it blank for now. Okay, and below this if I go here, we have a input box. So we'll create an input box, okay, for us to type. So to create an input box like this, we will use a tag called as input. So input is a tag which will be a single tag. It does not have a closure tag. The way we have the closure tags for all this, input is one of the tags which I mentioned. Some tags will not have a closure. So input is a tag which will not have a closure. So we'll simply close with a / in that same tag, okay? And in here we will type a lot of things. So I'm just gonna hit enter. So this closure tag. So if I just hover over this, you'll see the closure tag here. So input tag is just simply close with a / and close. There is no separate hash, angular bracket / input close. Okay, so that's not how it is. Input is the tag which will only close with a single tag. These are a few tags which come up like this. Okay, so I'm gonna type. So input, this tag has certain attributes. We learned about attributes in our first basic tutorial wherein we used anchor and href. Similar to it, we have attributes for input. We'll give type. So I want this to be a text box. So I'm going to give the type as text. So this is something which is recognized by our HTML. Okay, and I'm going to use something called as placeholder. Actually, let's type in till here and let's see what's happening. So if you see, we get a box, and we can type text because I have mentioned text. Okay, so somewhat similar to what it is. I want to see type the word here. So that is called as a placeholder. So whatever is displayed on that before you type something is called a placeholder. Okay, so I'm going to use the attribute called as space placeholder. Okay, if you just simply type placeholder, you'll see it coming up. So I'm just going to click enter, and in the quotes I'm going to type the word here. Okay, let's check now. Okay, you have the option here, type the word here. Is it correct? Yes, type the word here. We had 3 dots, and we can add the dots if required. I'm just gonna add it to make it look exactly similar. Okay, so and also when you see, when I relaunch, you see this text box blinking. That means it's already selected. Okay, there are 2 functions to this. Okay, to already select this, I mean automatically select this, we have something called as autofocus. Okay, so I'm just gonna type autofocus. So I will not type anything else. I'll just simply type autofocus. So what autofocus will do is, autofocus will ensure that, you know, the text box is automatically selected. If I had not put this, I would have to manually come in and select. The reason to do this is because when I just refresh, the timer starts, and if I have to click here, the timer will lose. I'll lose precious amount of time. So I can simply refresh and start typing. That's the reason autofocus is selected, so that, you know, it's already there. Okay, so we got gist of it. We'll have to type a couple of things. Okay, the time and score. Okay, let's do that. So my input tag is done. I'm gonna come back here. We are still in the body. If you see, yes, we're still in the body. So in here we will select something called as paragraph. We have a p tag for paragraph to write a paragraph. So paragraph does not necessarily means multiple lines. Anything which you write as a text, this can be called as paragraph. So I'm going to use my p tag, and in here I'm going to type these things, time left and score. Okay, so I'm going to type time left here. Time left. Okay, and I'm gonna give, actually yeah, I think this should be fine. 10 seconds at the start. Let's see, time left 10 seconds. Okay, somewhat similar to what it is. The countdown of time is something which will use the programming. Okay, so we'll not be able to do it using HTML. We'll do that later. Okay, the next thing which we have to do is score. Score equals 0 for default. So I'm going to use another paragraph here. So this paragraph is closed. I'm going to use another paragraph. Mention score. Okay, for people who are posting about the feedback links in the comments, feedback link will be posted only after 1:30. So please do not keep typing. We'll do this later. Please ensure that you do not disturb the people who are learning. Okay, feedback link will definitely be provided around 1:30 or so. Okay, during the closure, and we'll get this done. And regarding the certificates are free of cost. Okay, please do not spread wrong information. There is no charge on the certificate. Okay, so certificates will be free of cost, but let's concentrate on learning this. Okay, so okay, as I was saying, we used another paragraph here. We'll keep the score as 0 for now. Okay, and let's save this again. Let's refresh. Okay, so far I think it looks good. I just need a space here next to 0. I'm just gonna leave it space. Okay. This looks good so far, right? In here I'm just gonna use one more text or one more thing called as in the input text. We use the autofocus. You can just simply use it on the next line, just so that use it. Okay, so you can simply use it in the next line, the different attributes, so that it's clear. I don't want it to expand. It's simply the same thing. So I'm gonna add something else here called as autocomplete. Autocomplete, I'm gonna set it to off. So autocomplete is a feature of the browsers wherein once you have saved anything, once you have typed anything, okay, it will automatically come up. So this is a feature of the website. So for example, if you have typed your name on a website while logging in, next time we just type in your name. So for example, my name is Azif. If I just type in A, next time my whole name will come up. So that's something which we do not want it here, because it will be cheating here. So if I had this, if I'd used this word before, if I just type in S, the whole thing will automatically auto-populate. That's the reason autocomplete is turned off here. I'm going to turn it off. Okay, and okay, so that should not see any physical impact or changes here. All right, so this is our most probable script part done here. Okay, so this looks like we are done with our HTML coding. Okay, we will have to inculcate CSS coding and JavaScript coding. Okay, and we'll get this done. Okay, so for us to replicate the CSS file in this, we'll try and do this. Okay, so in our head tag, we'll have to create a reference image, and I'll tell you the link for it, to attach a CSS file. Okay, CSS there are two ways to inculcate the styling onto it. One is by using the CSS in the same code or in the same page, or we can simply use it in the next page. Okay, before this, okay, I think someone asked the question, why you wrote autocomplete. So as I explained again, autocomplete is something which see the words here, if you see the words come back on. I mean, there are I have given about 20 words here. The words repeat themselves because it's randomly generated. If you see, I'm simply refreshing, the words repeat. Okay, so if you have already written a word starting with B, if I have written ball, if autocomplete was not there, if I write B again, ball will automatically come up. So you can simply hit enter. So that's kind of like a cheating in this game, in my game's perspective. That's the reason I do not want that to happen. So autocomplete is a feature of most modern websites which saves us time. So for example, if we are typing something, on the website, like for example your email address or so. Once you've typed it, next time you come in, you will have that written already. Or if you're filling some form, if you just type in your name, all the other details will automatically populate. That's called autocomplete. I do not want that feature, so that's the reason I've just written it as no. After everything is done, you can simply turn it on and check. You might see the autocomplete option coming up. So that's something I do not want. So I am by default it will be on. So I'm going to turn it off. Okay. So it's done. Okay, so proceeding with this. Okay, so if you see our website now, it's not very neat. So this was very neat, and it's in the proper order. It has colors and everything. So this is very tacky and very this thing. I mean, this will still work, but it's very tacky. So there is no what you call feel effects to it. So to understand the feel effects, or to get it to look more sleeker and more beautiful, we'll have to use CSS. Right, so to use CSS, what we'll do is there are two ways. One is you can simply type in a CSS code in here. So CSS code is written in a HTML format called as style. So in the style, we can simply type everything. That is one way. Or the other way is, I'm just going to delete this. The other way is you can simply create a new file, okay, and type your CSS code here. Okay, I'm going to create the file. I'm going to save this for now. I'm going to mention this as, here you will have .css. Okay, or if you're using Notepad, simply change it to all files. I'm going to name this file called as style.css. Okay, this is going to be my CSS style file. Okay, so, and once we have written this, we'll simply import this file onto our HTML document. Okay, I'm going to switch here, so you can switch between the tabs here. So this is one of the advantages of Visual Studio Code. Okay, so to include this particular file into our HTML, there is a syntax. Okay, so we'll have to use an element called as link. So this is generally included in our head tag. So the link element is once again a single tag element. There is no closure tag for link, right? I'm sorry, I received one comment here saying change semicolon to colon. I don't understand where this is written. I think we have colon everywhere. So if you tell me specifically where, I can see. I think it's all semicolons everywhere, but it's just a text, so shouldn't matter. Anyway, yeah. So I was talking about link. Okay, so we'll use link, and the way to import the CSS style sheet, or CSS stands for cascading style sheet, we'll have to use an attribute called as rel for relative. Okay, I'm gonna type here style sheet. So because we are importing style sheet, okay, and we are using reference as style.css. Okay, so this will import the style sheet onto our website. Okay, so let's go to CSS and let's check. So in CSS, the way CSS works is slightly different to how HTML works. So this is the basic gist of HTML done. Okay, so it's very simple, about like 29-30 lines of code for HTML. I think that should be fine. We might have to add a couple of other lines, because if you see here on a website, actual website, so we see this time ran out and other things come up after the timer goes out. So we might have to write a couple of other lines, but I think this is the gist of it. Okay, so let's go to a CSS. Let's style this. Okay, to style we will have to use the element body tags. So we'll style our body, because whatever is written will be on the body. So we'll use the body tag and do this. So the way to work is, in here we don't have to change the elements, so we'll simply use the body tag. We don't even have to use the tags in CSS style sheet. Let's simply type body. We are going to be formatting the body, right? And we'll use flower bracket So the code for styling this will be in the flower bracket. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is change the background color. So we have complete white color here. I want it to be something bluish. Okay, I'm gonna type background hyphen color. Okay, one more thing to tell you. HTML is not necessarily case sensitive, but CSS and JavaScript are. So try to use uppercase and lowercase. It's always a good idea to use the uppercase and lowercase, right? So background color, I'm going to use the background color. I can simply type it black, blue, or something. So there are three different ways to type background color. One way is you can simply type the colors. Okay, there are about 16 different colors which can be used. I'm going to use this. Let's check if it actually links up or if it actually changes. Yes, it's changing the background color. Okay, but this is very dark blue. I need a slightly different color of blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this. So this is one way of typing the color. The other way is we have something called as a color picker. So just open Google, new tab, and type color picker, and in here you will be able to see I want something in blue, something light blue. So let's say if I want this. Okay, so in Google web page, I'm just going to zoom this so that you can see. Okay, type color picker, automatically the color picker comes in. So use the sliders here. You can slide to whatever color you want. Okay, I think this is good enough for me. So we have something called as a hex here. So just copy this hex value. Okay, use the hex value in our code. In background colors, simply type in the hex value, paste it here. You'll see something with the hash. So it changes the hash. So I'm just gonna save this and let's go back to my thing. Okay, it has changed the color. So this I'm happy with this color. We'll keep this color. Okay, this is my background color. So once again, so the syntax for this is background color colon and the name of the color or the hex code of the color. Okay, one of the comments I saw here, in my window quotes aren't coming with different highlighted colors. So I'm not sure what you mean. Is it on the Google, or if it is on Google, you need to simply go to Google and type. It should change. Or if it is on the website, if it's not coming up, that means the linking might not be proper. So you need to change it to style.css. You need to save the file as style.css. Okay, and you need to link it using this particular link. Link rel equals in the code style sheet space href equals style.css. Okay, I'm going to proceed. So the syntax for writing any of the codes is, so we'll simply use the element which we need to change the style for. So we have used the body element. So whatever is in the body, the whole element will be changed. Okay, that's the reason I've referenced body. Okay, I'm going to use background color and change it to color. So this is the property of CSS, background hyphen color. We use colon and we type the name of the color or we type the hex code. Okay, this is one thing. Next, what I want to do is I want to display this in something called as a flex. Display is one of the property, and there's something called as a flex. Flex is like a banner kind of thing. So if we check our original thing, this is my flex. So this box is called as a flex. So I want this in a flex. So I'm gonna type display hyphen flex. Okay. Then I'm gonna align it onto the center. So we have something called as align hyphen items I'm going to use center. So don't worry if you do not remember the code. This is something which will be there in documentation. Okay, so if you read the CSS documentation, we'll be able to see. Okay, then I'm going to use something called as justify content. I'll explain you what this means. Slightly might be over the head, but yeah, you'll understand. Yeah, as I mentioned, CSS is a case-sensitive language. Okay, a few of the cases will work, but it's always better to ensure that you type it in lowercase the way I've written. Okay, so let's check. So align items is used to align the things along the y-axis, and justify content is used to align the contents along the x-axis. So I'm gonna set both to center so that our website looks to be in center. It hasn't come up yet, so we need to add a couple of other things on this. I'm going to give a minimum height as 100 virtual height. I'm going to set the margin as 0. I don't want any margin. Let's check now. The margin is set, but we still don't have it onto the center. Let's check. Meanwhile, I'm also going to give a specific font to it. So I'm going to give it as Verdana. Verdana is the font. So I'm going to give a secondary font. If Verdana is not found by the browser, we'll use Geneva. If that's also not found, we'll use Tahoma. I think this 3 font should be enough. Let's check. Yeah, the font size is changed, but it's still not come up in a flex. So let's check. So far, everyone with me so far with this? Is this clear? If yes, please type yes in the comments. Background color, give the semicolon. Yes, I gave the semicolon. Let's. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that was the thing which is missing here. Okay, if you see, everything is in the center now, and we should be able to see. So what is meant by display flex? So display flex is, if you see this box here, this is something called as a flex. It's displayed as the banners. So flex banners are something which you might have heard. So it's going to display it in the flex kind of thing, and this flex has certain properties which will help us to align it onto the center. So it's aligned along the x-axis and y-axis. So in CSS, if you have to comment out anything, we'll have to use double slashes, or rather a slash and a colon, and end it with a star. This thing. So I have just commented this out just to show you. So if I do this, you'll see it not aligned in one side. It's just aligned on the x-axis. It's not aligned along the y-axis. So to enable that, we'll have to use this. So similarly, if I comment out this thing, it will be aligned along the y-axis and not the x-axis. I'll just show you. Yes, so it's on the left hand side completely. So I'm just gonna change this. This was just to show you. So this is the minimum height which I've given. I have removed the margin so that there is no aspect of margin coming into picture. Font family is just to change the font of the this thing. I think there was a different font in my browser. I have changed it. Okay, so this is the Verdana font. If Verdana font is not supported by the browser, okay, the next described font will come into picture, which is Geneva. If Geneva is also not supported, then Tahoma will come into picture. So I've given 3. If all the 3 is not supported, the browser's default font will be given up. Okay, so that's about the body customization. And next thing we'll do is let's go to our form. Let's see what else we'll have to customize. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna divide this in our web page into 2 sections here. So this is our first section, right? The difficulty and easy select box, and this is our other section. So this has to come up in a different section. So I'm gonna physically divide it. I mean, this division will not impact anything. That's just for styling. So we have an element called as div in HTML. So I'm gonna use the div start here, and where do I end it? I'm gonna end it almost at the end. Okay, so I've ended the div. So this will not impact any changes. This will not change anything here. It will still look the same. It's just that this is divided into a different section. So this particular thing, because this is a different section for us and this is a different section. So this is divided into a different section. Right, so div element is used to divide the function, divide the HTML code into a different function. So only when CSS is imparted along with it, that's when we will get the use of it. If there is no CSS elements involved, so for example, if I remove the CSS, how do I remove the CSS? I'm just gonna remove this, or just comment it out for now, and I'll show you what I mean. Just go and refresh. So it'll still be the way it was before. There is no division or anything. Okay, so only when CSS element is come into picture, that's when the div element is used. Alright, so I am giving a div here at the start of H2, immediately after this form with easy, medium, hard, and I'm gonna close it almost at the end. Okay, and so this div element, I'm gonna give it some name. So I'm gonna give it a name of a class. So class is the attribute used to give a name. There are 2 attributes. One is called ID, and one is called class. So these are used to denote what div element we're using. So I'm gonna give it a name called as container. So this is just a name. You can give any name. So I'm gonna use this container and design some rules for it, some style for this whole div. This div contains so this div contains this whole part. I'm going to give it some rules to make it a little more sleeker and more designful. Okay, so if you see here, it's not arranged in center. So that's something which we'll do, and a few other things. Okay, let's do this. So to access the container, because this was a tag, I could simply access it as body. Okay, div, I'm going to use multiple divs in the later session. So I have chosen something called as container. So to access the container, I'm going to simply type dot, and I can use any class. What's the name of my class? I've given it as container. So I'm going to type container, and I'll use curly braces, and I'll write my code for this thing here. So first things, I'm going to give a background color. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to change the background color. I don't want it to be exactly this. So I'll just change it to something else. Let's go back to our color picker. I'm going to make this even more lighter. Okay, I'm going to copy this hex code. Let's go back to our code and let's type in hash. Okay, so that's the thing. Let me just save this and refresh. So if you see, this box has changed the color. So this is my one div or a division which I have taken. So I'm customizing this particular thing. Okay, how am I doing it? Using this dot. Why dot? Because we used a class. The class is always represented by dot in CSS, and whatever is the name of the class, I'm gonna reference that. Okay, I gave a this thing. So there is something called as padding. Okay, so there is something called as a padding. So every element will have a certain level of padding. The way it works is HTML element. So you will have the text box, then you will have a padding, then you will have a border, then you will have a margin. So that's how it is divided. Let me see if I can show you that. Yeah, so you will have something like this. So every element, so we have our content, then we'll have a padding, then we'll have a border, and we'll have a margin. Unless we display it, it will all be blank. Okay, so I'm going to use this padding and increase a little bit. Okay, so content is where our content is written on our page. So this is the content. So next to it, there'll be a padding. So I'm going to activate that padding. So if you see here, it's become bigger. So there is this thing from the speed typer till here, there is some space. That is the padding space. Okay, here if you see, there is hardly any space on the sides and all. So I'm going to use that. So okay, it's called padding, and I'm going to give it as 20 pixels as the size for the padding. Okay, and I'm going to give a border. So I'll give something called as border radius to just make sure the border is a little thicker. I'm going to give it 4 pixels. I'm going to give it a box shadow. So this is just to give a shadow. This is just the style effects. Okay, so the box shadow size will be slightly 0. I'll give it 3, and this is the horizontal size, vertical size, and I'm going to give it a color, the other color format, the way we use the hex code here. I'm going to show you another thing. So we have something called as RGBA color code. I'm going to give it 0, 0, 0, 3, or rather 0.3. So 3. Oh, I think I missed 1 0. Okay. This color will be the font color. I'm just going to give triple F. Triple F will be white. So I'm going to give its position. I'm going to make it relative. What relative will do is, relative will make it relative, or corresponding to the previous section. So the previous section which we had was this. So it's going to make it relative to this. So right next to this. So when I make it absolute, it will be. So there are 3 things which are there. One is relative, one is absolute, and one is fixed. When it is fixed, even when you scroll, it will be on the same side. I'll not be able to explain it to you because of the time constraint. When it is relative, it will be relative to the previous element. When it is absolute, it will be in contrast to the start of the web page. So I'm going to set it for relative now. By default, it will be on absolute. I'm going to use text align as center. We have already aligned this justify content to the center along the x-axis. We just have to align it along the y-axis. So I'm going to leave it this. I'm going to give the width of the element as 500 pixels. As I mentioned once again, this is not very important. This is just to make sure the website looks sleeker. Okay, so I'm going to do this. So if you see this, we have this change here. All right. So this is almost looking similar to the way it was here, except that the color is a little lighter. Okay, let me make it a little darker. I'm going to use this hex code color here. Let's go to our VS Code. Just going to change the background color. Let's check. Okay. Right. Okay. So this looks much more like this. Right. The time is 1:15. So we're going to extend a little. And let's see, people who are interested can extend beyond this, and we'll learn with the JavaScript. Okay, so let me try to do this as soon as possible. Okay, so this is with the styling sheet. There is one more styling which we'll have to do. I'm simply gonna do that a little while later. We'll come back to this. So now let's proceed with a JavaScript code. Okay, so to include the JavaScript code, let's create a new file. And first I'm going to save it. Click on Save As. I'm going to type here as JavaScript. So if you see JS, yeah, JavaScript.js. Okay. So I'm going to name this as script.js, and I'm going to save it in the same folder. Please ensure all the files which you have saved, all the 3 files, are in the same folder, right? The question I have here is, doesn't both div and class give same result when modified with CSS? It does give the same result, but the reason I gave a name to the div is because I'm going to use another div in some time. Okay, so when there are multiple divs, so when I do it, the styling will be applicable for multiple things. So div is an element which can be used multiple times throughout the text. So I'm gonna have, if I want to use div again here, so I can use that again and type something else here. So for me to identify or disclose that I'm using this particular div, I gave it the name of a class, and I use this class so that only this particular section is used. You can simply use div and do it, it will still work. So instead of dot container, you can simply, like we have written body, we can simply type body and do it, it will still work. But when we add more divs, that's when all the divs will be there. So that's the only reason I have used the container. Right, so we'll have to come back to CSS. We have one tiny bit pending. Okay, so for now let's go to a JavaScript, and JavaScript we will try and code. Okay, so first things we'll do is we'll declare a few variables. So JavaScript, the variable is something which is defined as var, and if we have a constant value, we'll define it as const. Okay, so I'm gonna use, this is how the declaration works in JavaScript. Const, I'm gonna give a name of the variable, this is simply a word. Okay, I'm gonna reference the word option. So if you remember, we had written a h1 tag here. So in this h1 tag, I'm gonna give it a id. Id is an identifier to reference the identifier of this particular thing. I'm gonna give it word. Okay, so id is an identifier. It's a attribute which can be used with any of the tags. So I'm gonna identify this word here. Okay, this was the thing which came up in here. So when you get the word below the type speed typer, so that's where the word will come up. So I'm gonna reference that and code. So I'm gonna id it as word. In JavaScript, I'm gonna use a function called as get element. So get element is this thing. So I'm gonna reference document dot get element by id. Okay, and I'm going to use that id as word and end it with a semicolon. So the syntax is simple. So document means the whole of the document which we are using, that's referencing. Get element by id is a inbuilt JavaScript function of the document. So what it will do is it will take the element referenced by an id. So I have given the id as word. Okay, so if I go into my HTML, so I have given the id of this particular element as word. So it will reference that particular element. This is the script. So this particular word will reference that element, and whatever is written in that word, that will be stored in this particular variable called as word, or a particular constant called as word. So this is the script. So similarly, I'm gonna type a few other things, and we'll do this. So I want to create an id called as text and create an id for score. So I'm gonna go back to my HTML and change a few things. Okay, this is again just to ensure that we have this functionality. So in the paragraph here where you have time left, so this is something which we want to change constantly, right? So I'm gonna come here, and after this I'm gonna use an element called a span, and I will end the span after this 10 seconds. I'll tell you what span means. Okay, so the span is something which is used to take. So the way we use div is containing multiple elements on it. Okay, so span is something of an opposite of div. In a particular element, if we have to choose a smaller part of it, we'll use span. So I just want to highlight this 10 seconds part. So that's the reason I'm using span. This will not have functionality impact. I'm just going to give it a name. ID equals, I'm going to name this as, say, time, which I'm going to obviously use in JavaScript. Okay. Similarly, I'm going to create a span here because I want the score to increase, right? So I'm going to use a span element here. Span. I'm just simply going to type ID directly rather than changing it later. I'm going to give the name of this ID as this thing. I'm going to change the span here. So this particular thing, this 0 is my span. Okay, this 0 is my span, and here the 10 seconds is the span which I have written at time. So I have ID'd this as time. Okay, so with this reference, I'm going to go back to my JavaScript, and let me just mention constant. I'm just going to give the name as time element equals document dot get element by ID, and I'm going to give this time and use the semicolon. Similarly, constant, I'm going to give score L equals document dot get element by ID, and what is this? This was score. So this is declared, and we're going to create another thing, text document dot get element by ID. I'm going to type text. Okay, so we did not declare text here, so I'm just going to declare the text. So in the input, so this input box, we have mentioned all these details, so I'm just going to give it an ID. ID is just an identifier. Okay, I'm going to name it as text because we have referenced this on there. So ID is the identifier. Okay, let me tell you how to link the JavaScript. The script code is very long. I'm just going to tell you how to link it. So in here, what we'll do is inside the body itself. Okay, just before the body ends. So whatever is the JavaScript code, we have to link it here. So we are using a tag called a script tag, and script tag will end. Okay, script tag will not hold anything. In the script tag, I'm just gonna type the source. The source of the JavaScript will be script.js. That's the file name, right? So because it's in the same folder, I'm just typing in script.js. If it was saved in a different folder, you'll have to type in the complete part of the folder. Okay, so what this does is this will link the JavaScript file, the script.js, to the index.html. So whenever there is a script which is supposed to be run, it will be run from here. Okay, so far so good. Let's continue. Let's go back to our HTML, and let me add a few bits about the end thing. So if you see here, after this there is no other thing which comes up, right? So this other bit comes up after the time goes over. So we have to define something so that that comes in. So to define that, I'm just gonna create a division there. Okay, I see a comment which says there was spelling mistake with document. Yeah. Thank you for correcting. So yeah, there are bound to be some silly spelling mistakes which occur. Okay, so please ensure we don't make them. And I'm a lazy typer, so that means I make a lot of mistakes while typing. So yeah. Okay, so if there is any mistakes, please point it out and we'll correct it. Okay, so yeah, I was just gonna create another div. I'm gonna give this div a class. I'm gonna call this end game container. Okay, just the name. So class, I'm also going to give it an ID. Class is generally used in CSS and ID is generally referenced in JavaScript. I mean, you can use the other thing as well, but since we might take a longer time, I'm just simply gonna name it as class and ID the way we learned. Okay, and I'm just gonna close the div. So this is for us to just ensure that the. So actually, I'm gonna put this inside this section itself because it's supposed to be in this section itself, right? So I'm just gonna do this here. Okay, so this particular thing, after this is within this original division, I'm gonna type this smaller division. Okay, so just added a endgame container. There's nothing displayed and it will not display anything. We'll have to code it and display it. Okay, so let's check. Also, I'm gonna give an ID to our form. Okay, the form which we have here. So I'm gonna give it an ID. So to identify. So any elements which are referenced will have a ID. I'm gonna give this settings form because this was a settings form. Right, okay, so let's go back to our JavaScript and let's check. We'll have to create a couple of other things. Corel is done, ML, word, text. We'll have end game element. I'm gonna give document dot get element by ID and I'm gonna give the name as end game container semicolon, and another things we defined was settings form equals document dot get element by ID. This is the only method which I'm going to teach you. We don't have time to teach you other things, so we can also have get element by class, get element by ID, get element by other things and all. Okay, so I'm going to use settings hyphen form. Okay, so now that this is done, so it's just referencing. Now we have to define the words which can be used. Okay, so the random words which are predicted. So obviously there is a list. I'm going to create a list of words. So I'm going to define it as words. So beware, this is different from the word which is coming. This is single thing. This is the plural. So this is a different word altogether. Okay, so we'll use this, and in the words I'll give a list of words. So the list of words, I'll just type in list of words. They will be separated by commas. Let's give some. I'm just gonna give some random words, say about some 15-20 words. The more the words, the less repeatability, but yeah. I'm just gonna quickly type this. Pies, I think I wrote pies. No, I wrote ball as well. Don't want to repeat it. I'm gonna type juice. North, south, east, west. Okay, we're gonna continue. We're just sharing the feedback link. Okay, so you can go through the link, fill in your WebDuel feedback, and let us know. People who want to continue the project can stay back. We will have the session going on for another 20-25 minutes. I think 20 minutes should do it. Okay, we'll simply write the code and get out this thing. Right, so we have the feedback link sent as promised at 1:30. You can share the feedback. Okay, the link is above. So filling the feedback is something which is mandated for us to send the certificates, certificates. The certificates will take about 24 to 48 business hours, so approximately 2 to 3 working days. Okay, so we'll have to, I mean, not all the certificates will be sent at once. Okay, there's a limit to sending the certificates. So we're about, say, 160 people here. Okay, so what happens is the certificates will be generated in batches. Okay, and it will be posted on our Telegram group. Okay, so please join our Telegram group. We'll be sending the link. Okay, so the Telegram link group will have the certificates. So join our Telegram group. We'll have the updates there, and let's see how it's done. Right. So yeah, the feedback link is shared, and the Telegram group has done. Right, and please do register for our next webinars. The next webinar will be listed here. I'm just going to open the link for the next webinar. So the next webinar is going to be interesting as well. So I would like that everybody participate and learn something new. It's going to be regarding the social media marketing kind of thing. We're using a Twitter bot. Okay, we're creating a Twitter bot using Python. So Twitter is something I think everybody will have. So yeah, you can use it. You have the registration link here. The link will be posted onto our group. So please fill in and register for that as well. That will be again next Sunday, and that will be a shorter webinar compared to this. This will be a little longer. Okay, so we'll start. We'll go back to our session. Sorry for the interruptions. So let's continue. Okay, so I have defined, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words approximately. I think this should be enough for now. Okay, so I would say the more the better for us to, because it will repeat. Okay, so once this is done, let us initialize. I'm gonna use the let keyword. Let keyword is again similar to the variable declaration. I'm gonna set this as 0 for start. The score was 0, and what was the time? The time was 10 seconds. So I'm gonna set it as 10. Okay, JavaScript is dynamic, so it will automatically recognize that this language, that this is a number, so we'll not have to use it as a string. Okay, so it's dynamic. So I'm gonna also use another keyword called as difficulty. So because we were setting the difficulty level, I'm just gonna set it. I'm not gonna set it to anything. I'm just gonna leave it blank. And I'm gonna use this function. If you remember, I mentioned about the function autofocus there. When you know in the website, when we just refresh, it should automatically come up. So using the JavaScript, I'm also going to ensure that this happens. So I'm using this function called as text.focus. Right, so focus is the function which will be defined or always set. Focus function is an inbuilt function in JavaScript. So what it does is it is used to focus it on a specific text. The text box which we have is related to text. So if you remember here, we assign this text box to text. So I'm using this text and using the focus function. Right, and now for the word generation, we don't want the words to come up in a manner that which is defined. I want it to randomize. I want it to get a random word. Okay, so we will have to develop a random function to get this done. Before this, this one thing which I think we have to do, we will have to set a time interval. So we have an inbuilt function called as set interval. So what this set interval will do is it will update the time based on whatever. So I'm going to use this update time function, and I'm going to let it change for every second. This is 1000 is the milliseconds here, so we have to change this every millisecond. I'm going to call this function later in the programming code, but just remember that we'll have to call this update time function. Okay, so I'm now gonna just create a function to generate a random word. So I'm just creating the function. Creating a function is different from calling the function. When we type function, that means we are defining or designing the function. Okay, so I'm just gonna type it as get random word. I'm just making it descriptive. So this will return words. So to generate a random function, I'm going to use something called as matfloor and matrandom. If you want to understand about the way matrandom works, I'm going to leave a link in the description. So you can watch that out. So what matrandom basically does is, I'm going to explain it in one line. So matrandom will generate a random value. Okay, so matrandom will generate a random value between 0 and 1 in some decimals, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, something like that. Okay, so we'll be multiplying that with the words length. What's the length of a words? Words length is, word is this particular list. The length of this is 10. So because I have assigned 10. So whatever is the number, it will multiply it here. So for example, if this matrandom generator, whenever this function is called, this is an inbuilt function again. So it generates a number between 0 and 1, a decimal number. So it will be multiplied with this. So for example, if it is called 0.2, it will multiply itself with the words length, that is 10. So it will be 2. So if it is 0.21, it will be 2.1. So what matfloor does is, matfloor will just change the number and make it a proper integer. So if it is 2.1, it will round it off to the nearby integer. So if it's 2.1, it will change to 2. If it's 2.9, it will change to 3. So that's what matfloor function does. So ultimately we'll get this particular function will return some number. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. Okay, so what this does is, words dot this thing. So what it will do is, it will check the index. So for example, if it's returned 2, the index of 2 is 10, so it will get the 10th word displayed. So something like that. Right, so this is just used to return the index, and the index will link here, and whatever is the index, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if it is the second index, it will type the second word coming up. So that's all this function does. Right, I'm gonna create another function so that the word is added. So I'm gonna type it as add word to DOM. So this is just again name of the function. You don't have to give this name. I just made it because it's descriptive. So DOM references the document object. So I'm gonna use it. So whenever there is a function, we'll have to use flower brackets. So I'm gonna type random word equals, I'm gonna call this function get random word. Get random word was the function which we defined here. So I'm gonna store that in random word variable. Okay, and I'm gonna use this random word variable and you inculcate this in word. So what's a word? The word is the placeholder, or rather the word is the element which we defined here. right? Word is the element which will use word. So inner HTML, what this inner HTML will do is whatever is the value which we got from here, it will be included in the HTML file. So in here, in this word here, so that means in the id word here, so which was blank till now. So because of this function, what will happen is this word will be executed, or whatever is the word generated through this random word will be executed onto this inner HTML word. Okay, so whenever there is a word thing, we'll start typing, and I'm gonna update a couple of other things here. I'm gonna update the function to update the score. So whenever a word is correct, what we have to do, we have to update our score. So I'm going to create a function for this, update score. So this update score function, what we have to do, we'll just have to increase the score. So score plus plus will increase the score by 1. So whenever this function is called, it will increase the function by 1 number. Okay, and whenever the score is increased, I want it to be displayed. So the element which we used here for this was score L. I think score L it was at the start. Yes, score L. So, and I'm going to use inner HTML again to display it. Inner HTML, I'm going to equal as score. So score value, whatever is there, will be transferred onto the inner HTML and score L element. So it will come back to here. Okay, the score will be updated whenever this function is called, the score will increase to 1. So we have to call that function at one point of time. So when we call it, we'll see later. I mean, we'll have to define a couple of functions, other functions. So we'll also have to define a time update function. So I'm going to type update time. So what update time will do? Time will have to decrease, not increase. Score has to increase, time will have to decrease. So how do we decrease the time? Time minus minus. So it was 10 initially, so it will come back to 10, 9, 8, 7 and other things. Okay, and again, so we'll have to inculcate this onto our inner HTML. Inner HTML equals time. I'm not going to simply type time. I'm going to use as concatenation. I'm going to type S for second. Okay, so time value, whatever is the value of the time, this plus will simply add this S next to it. An update score function, name of function. Thank you, Kriti. I'll just change that. So as I mentioned, I make a lot of spelling mistakes. So yeah, thanks for correcting me. Okay, so these are the functions defined. Okay, so and after this is done, if time is 0, so the time will decrease here. If time is 0, what should be done? So we use triple equal to in JavaScript. If time is 0, we have to use clear interval. So whenever we use a time interval, this will keep on going until there is when we use a set interval, there has to be a clear interval function. So we use the set interval. This will keep on going until there is a clear interval. When will clear interval come? When the time goes down to 0. So when time goes down to 0, I'm just gonna make this a little neat looking. I'm gonna type game over and we'll design this game over function. Okay, so obviously, so in game over function, what we have to do is, so I'm gonna set the game over function, design the game over function game over. And game L inner HTML equals, I'm just gonna type it in the next line. I'm gonna use the h1 script. And what do we type? Let's go to this thing. Time ran out. Right? Time ran out is in h1. So I'm gonna type this. So this will only execute when there is a game over function. Time ran out. So if you see here, I'm still using the HTML tags. JavaScript still supports HTML tags, so it will work. and below this there was a paragraph, if I am correct, if I'm not wrong. And what was the paragraph? Your final score is whatever is the score. So I'm gonna write your final score is, and I'm gonna use a formatted string. So to use a formatted string, I'm gonna use a dollar, and then because I'm including a variable, so the value of score, whatever is the score here, the score, it should come up here. So I'm going to use this, inculcate this here, okay, and type it. That's the reason. So this is just the normal text, this is a variable which I'm using, so that's the reason I'm typing it this way, okay. And then there is a button here created, so the reload button. What the reload button does, it reloads. So I'm going to use this button, and I'm going to use on click. So onClick is a button, is a HTML variable, so it has one of the attribute called as onClick. So I'm gonna define the onClick. Let's close the button. And what's the name of the button? Reload. Okay, if you see here, there's a reload. So I made this reload. Okay, and I'm gonna give this a function. So there is an inbuilt function of the browser called as location reload. What this does is it will simply refresh the page. Okay, so location reload will simply refresh the page. So on click, that means when I click this button, it will reload. Right, so our code is still not complete. We have to add a couple of other things. So this was our inner HTML. In the inner HTML, till this we will mention in endgame, and then I'm gonna use the endgame or display the endgame. I'm gonna use style. Style is the property, it's like linking to CSS, and I'm gonna use display, the display function. So this is another way of writing the display attribute. I'm gonna use flex. So this is similar to what we did in CSS, wherein we use display as flex. This was in CSS, since we use colon. So when we are writing in JavaScript, we just use dot style dot display and give equals to flex. Right, so this should do it. Then here we'll call this function add word to DOM, the one which we defined. So we'll call this here after this function is defined. So to call the function, we'll just simply have to type this, give a bracket and give an exclamation, and that should get this done. And a couple of other things which we'll have to do here is we will have to use something called as event listeners. We'll have to use something called as event listeners. So to use event listeners, text is the file. We'll have to what event listener does is whenever there is a change in anything, whenever there is alteration made on the thing, we'll have to use that. So we use something called as event. So the change is an event. So I'm going to use the text and I'm going to type add event listener. Okay, this is inbuilt JavaScript function again. So there are two things, one is input and one is change. So I'm going to use input here. So whenever there is an input happens, I'm going to set it to our event E, and I'm going to define this. I'm going to create a constant which is called inserted text. So that's I'm going to use as target dot value. So what this does is whatever value is entered in a text box in here, whatever value is entered in the text box, that is that's an event. Okay, so it grabs that value and it's gonna store it in the inserted text. Okay, why do we need this? Because if the inserted text is matching our, what was the value, random text, random word, I think, yes, random word. So that means our score has to be updated. We will have to call this function. So we'll write that line here. If inserted text, so to perform similarity we'll use triple equal to in JavaScript is equal to random word. Okay, that was the name which we gave. Please ensure the capitalization is correct, because if the capitalization is not correct you will not get the output. Okay, what do we do? If it is matching, we'll have to use add word to DOM. So we'll have to generate a new text. What this add word to DOM does, so it will generate a new text, generate a new word. I think we defined that here, add word to DOM. Yes, so it'll define a new text. Yeah, it will generate a new random word. And also when there is a matching, we'll have to update the score. So what was the function we used to update the score? Update score, right? So this will increase the score. Where was this? Yeah, here. It will increase the score and it will display it. Okay. And then we'll clear the value. E dot target the value, if you remember, was the one where we got inserted text. After this is done, we'll have to clear the value. We need it to be blank, so I'm gonna set it as blank. I'm just gonna give an empty space. Leave it. Okay, so far clear? Close this. And now we'll choose this thing. If difficulty, we have choose the difficulty is equals to, what are the options? Hard. So I'm gonna define this here. If difficulty is hard, time plus equals 2. So that means I'm gonna increase the time by a barrier of 2 seconds. If difficulty is hard, whenever there is a correct word, the time will increase by 2. So similarly, if I'll use else if. So we are using a if and else condition here. If difficulty equal to medium, we'll use time plus equals 3. We'll give it 3 seconds here. Okay, similarly else I don't have to specify the condition because it's already assumed that it is easy. Time plus equals 5, so it will be 5 seconds. And after this I'm gonna update the time. I'm going to use this here to close the bracket and then close the other bracket as well. And we use this parenthesis, we'll close this. I think that's almost done. The last bit which we have is for us to set the difficulty, we'll just have to ensure we change the difficulty. So we'll use settings.form. That was the ID which we use, settings form. We'll add an event listener to this. we'll use a change rather than add. So because we are changing it here we use the input because we are typing in. Here we are using change because we are changing the difficulty levels, right? So once again, similarly, we'll use equals and arrow and so difficulty. I'm going to set it as e.target.value again. And I'm going to use something called as local storage. This is again an inbuilt function called set item. So what this set item will do is it will simply tell us, it will simply pick the item from there and assign it to the value. Difficulty. So I'll have to ensure I just give an ID to difficulty. Let me check if the ID is given here. In our form, the label which we have, so we'll have to give this ID as difficulty for select. Let's make it lowercase, and in here label as well. We'll give for difficulty. Let's go back to our script. Let's save this actually. Let's go back to our script. Given difficulty. Right. Let's save this. Let's check if there is no spelling mistakes. Should be able to get this done. Okay, so this is our complete code. Let's write it and let's execute it. Okay, so we start getting the words. So if you see, the level is easy, so I'm getting 4 points added or 4 seconds added every time. There are a few predictable words coming up as well. I have added a few other words as well. So I'm gonna set this to medium. So when I set it to hard, I will get 1 second added. Spelling mistake. So if you see here, the moment I enter complete the word changes. Next word will be there, and second is already almost added. Yep. So let's wait for the clock to run down. So if you want the whole JS code, I can simply give it to you. Here's what I'll do. So it will be posted onto our GitHub. We'll also add the codes, all the 3 codes on our Telegram group. So the index.html. So sometimes what happens is if there is a mistake in the code, like if there is any grammatical errors or syntax errors, we'll not be able to get the output. So the thing with JavaScript is for us to debug the JavaScript, we'll have to go here and we'll have to click on inspect, and we should be able to see inspect here options. So this will tell us all the things. If we have to debug anything, we'll have to go to console, and we should be able to see the code and everything here in the console. Right, so it's slightly difficult to debug like in other languages, so that's the reason. Anyway, what I'll do is we will share the code in our Telegram. The code will be shared now in the Telegram channel and also in our GitHub repository, and we'll get this done. Okay, so if you want to see the code again, just see it here. So this was the last line. So we'll have to be very careful about the brackets. So if the reason for using VS Code is it will tell us. So when you press on this, when you just click on this bracket, it will tell where the ending bracket is. I'll click on this. This is the ending bracket. Right. So okay, for people who have not gotten the output, I have just shown the code. I will zoom it up as well, because the text is a little this thing. So I have added the comment here. So whatever is that. Also, while this is happening, a small announcement. So you people will have an opportunity to become volunteers for Diazonic Lab. Okay, so you can become volunteers. So to spread the message, I mean, since we're conducting free webinars, we want more and more people to reach, and we want more people to listen to this. So if you can spread word to it and help us reach more people, that will be really helpful. So as an offer, what we are going to do is, if you can get in touch with the colleges and organize something like this for us, I mean, see, check with the college and see if they want any specific topic. We conduct webinar on different topics. So if you get more people, we could even give you an experience certificate for it. Okay, so just reply to our email with the details. So if you can convince your college to arrange the webinar, you will be treated as an intern and you'll receive an experience certificate. Okay, so we would, as I mentioned, we would like to have more and more people. We would like to impart knowledge to more and more people. So we could also do a longer session details, because this was only for 2.5 hours it was planned. We already overshot the time. Okay, so it's almost 2.5 hours. So this is not very in-depth. Okay, so if we need more things, we would have to have more times. Okay, and we can arrange that. So please get to us, reach more people, and let us know so we can help others. Okay, so I think someone said to scroll up. I'm just going to scroll up. I'm going to remove this thing comments here because it will confuse you. Okay, so this was the last bit, which was here. Here's what I'll do. I'll decrease the size a little so that more people can see this. So I'm going to change this to 28. I should reduce the size, but you should be able to see it a little more clear. I'm going to remove the blank spaces so that it's easier to understand. JS is very difficult to understand. It's most definitely not, because this was a beginning tutorial and we did not get to get the time to explain each and every bit. That you feel that, but JS tutorials are very simple. I mean, it's one of the simplest programming languages. Okay, so you'll understand as in when you practice a little more of code, you'll be able to see. So what we would do is we will be planning to conduct in-depth tutorial just only about JavaScript right from scratch. Okay, so we are planning to have that sometime next month or so. Not sure about the exact scheduling. Our scheduling team will get back to you on Telegram and update you. But yeah, JS is definitely one of the most happening programming languages, and it's here to stay. Along with Python and Java, it's here to stay. Right, okay. If you have any other questions or concerns, please let me know. Okay, I think someone asked, show the index code too. Yeah, the index code will also be shared. I think the code should be shared in the next 2 minutes. Give me like 1 minute, let me just check. Okay, I just had an update from the team. The codes will be shared onto Telegram in the next 15-20 minutes or so. Okay, both I mean all the three codes. So our JavaScript code, our HTML code, as well as CSS code, all will be updated. Okay, so this is how this thing will look like. This was my webinar. So this is how our folder will look like once it's done. So we'll have three different sections: one for HTML, one for JavaScript, and one for CSS. Right. So if you want me to scroll up again, I'll do so. If someone has not completed. I hope this session was fun. I know we rushed up a little bit in the JavaScript, but I hope this was fun. This was interactive. At least the first part was good. Okay, so this is like a simple example of how the course is done. So what I want you to do is, I don't want you guys to stop here. I want you to ensure that you continue from here, build on this. Okay, there are lots of tutorials available on YouTube. Our channel will also have a complete series done. Okay, apart from this, you can simply go check. There are lots of speakers who perform step-by-step instructions and performance on this. You can simply follow them and okay. If you have any questions, any doubts, please comment and let us know. Okay, can you scroll index code? Okay, I'm gonna switch over to index code and I'm gonna scroll. So this was a doc type. I think this was simple initially. Title, the link used for CSS to reference the CSS. So as I mentioned, the reason I made the CSS as a separate thing is so that we can simply get this code neater. We can also include all the everything, all the CSS and JavaScript in a single file, but the code will become very bulky. Okay, so that's the reason, and we created a form here. Form, we used a label. This for an ID is just as an identifier, okay, for the form. It has no real impact on what is written. It's only used for identifier to use the styling and JavaScript codes added. We use three options for the medium, hard difficulty level. Okay, and then we ended the form. We created a class name for CSS styling for this. We used an emoji by copying it from Google. We gave the name. We wrote this in small text so that it's not very huge. Okay, we wrote this word. The word was blank, but it was generated through the JavaScript. Okay, we used an input function. We gave a placeholder. We typed the text. We removed the autocomplete. We initiated autofocus. Then we created a paragraph text with time left. We created a small span because we wanted to use this 10 seconds and manipulate this. Similarly with 0 we wanted to manipulate, so we created a span for this. We in the other paragraph for score. Then we created a end game container for the end game screen to come up, so we used that. And finally we wrote our script. We embedded our script onto this. So other way to write the JavaScript is, instead of typing this, we just can type script. Inside the script we can simply paste the whole thing, and that should come up. Right? Okay, so I guess that will be all. What's the name of all the platform where we execute JavaScript? Okay, so the platform which I'm using right now is Visual Studio Code, but we can use this exactly the same thing on a notepad. The notepad will have the exact same features. The reason I'm using VS Code is just because it has more features where I can move between the tabs constantly. If it was notepad, we would have to launch multiple notepad, but it absolutely works fine with the notepad as well. Okay, so even if your computer is slow, you have low memory, low RAM, it's fine. It doesn't matter. All you need is, you don't even need the internet for this. Okay, all you need is, you need a installed web browser. Even if it's without internet, it's fine. You can simply run this. Internet is only used for reference for you to understand. Okay. So for example, if you do not understand, the way to learn is, if you do not understand something with the code, simply Google the code link. So if you don't know what inner HTML is, go to Google, type in about this. You will get lots of details. You understand, and then you proceed forward. That's the way to learn about it. Okay. So I'll tell you something. So to learn this completely, as I mentioned, you would have to understand this. The complete JavaScript will take about 100 hours of tutorials. Okay, which there is. And once you understand everything for 100 hours, we will have to execute everything for 100 hours once again. Okay. I think someone asked, so can you go to script.js and update time function? Okay, I'll go to update time function. Yeah, this is our update time function update time. We are reducing the time and getting this done. Okay, I would request everyone to like this video and share it with your friends who wants to understand. And if you have any this thing after this, the video will be published. You will be able to reference back. Okay, I mean, after this is done, the video will be live and stored on the website, on our YouTube channel. You can simply go and go through the whole notes, but it will be a complete video of 2.5 hours or so. Okay, you can go through it. You can go check if you have missed any code or anything. You can go there and check as well. That's another thing. But I would request you to like the video and subscribe our channel again. So please conduct a session for React.js. Yes, we'll definitely conduct a session on React.js. I mean, we have lots of this thing. The whole web development series is in there. React.js, Node.js, Angular, and other things. So we're also thinking about mean stack. So wherein we'll use these 4 things, and we'll also do that. That will definitely be done. And we'll try to ensure that most of the things are covered. So this is just the first tutorial on web development. So obviously there will be many more to come in future. And since we are conducting this only on the weekends, we also have our regular jobs apart from this. So it's not entirely possible to conduct it on every day. We'll be doing this on weekend, and when time permits, we'll try to add the weekday classes as well. So that's the reason, the time constraint. If not, we would definitely be more than happy to conduct lots of sessions. Alright, so for now, the next week's session is planned on TwitterBot. TwitterBot is again fun. So I would request you to join and attend that. It's gonna be fun. Alright, so if you have any more questions, please ask. If not, we'll end the session here. Is it possible to learn JavaScript for mobile? Yes, the mobile app development, there is a different platform. So this JavaScript, what we learn will not be the exact thing which will be used in competitive programming. This is only for basic websites. So if it is competitive, we'll be using something called as jQuery. Mobile will have something called as mobile app development. Can Visual Studio be used as an alternative to installing Java? I don't think Java will work. Java has a specific text editor. Visual Studio will work for Java, but people prefer using Java's separate editors like Eclipse and other things. It will still work fine. I mean, it's just that this is more designed for web development. So can you please teach about creating mobile app for website? Yes, that is something which we are planning to do as a long time. So there is something called as cross-platform mobile application, which uses this basics like using JavaScript, HTML and CSS. We add something called as a Cordova app on it, and we perform the mobile platforms. But that's a lengthy topic altogether. So it will require lots of details. Without us knowing the basics, we will not be able to proceed. So we'll plan that for a later session. We'll definitely do it. Alright, thank you so much for attending, and we'll wrap up for today. And if you have any confusions, any difficulties, just write in the comments or email to us. We'll try and answer all the queries there. Alright, and certificate, as I mentioned, will be on the Telegram group. Okay, so please join the Telegram group. The link has been given. If you have any confusions, please let us know. As I mentioned, it will take 24 to 48 hours, or 2-3 business days for us to send the certificate. Okay, and we'll get this done. Thank you so much. Stay safe and do not stray away from your home. Corona time. So please, stay safe, stay healthy, drink lots of water, exercise. All right. Have a nice time ahead. We'll be closing the feedback link in about 5-10 minutes. So please ensure you fill the feedbacks and have a session. Thank you all for attending. Bye now.